Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to our esteemed guests, Encik Mohamad Sazali Sha'ari, Executive Director for Malaysian Sign Language Development at the Malaysian Federation of the Deaf, members of the Malaysian Federation for the Deaf that will be present today, Cik Goh dan Cik Nur Saada, our advisor from IUM, Madam Raja Nur Ashikin, as well as our fellow viewers. My name is Ilan bin Ahmad Hanif, and I will be your moderator for this program, which is titled Sign Language and Leadership, Bridging the Gap. Before we begin, let us recite Al-Fatiha. Okay, first of all, I would like to inform everyone to fill in the attendance form that will be linked in the comment section. Okay. So beside me today is Cik Goh, who will be the interpreter for this event. Okay. Now, to start off, this event is a joint program organized by students from Leadership and Management course, Section 508, in collaboration with the Mahallah Representative Committee. The aim of this program is to help the public communicate using sign language as an important aspect of leadership and management, to spread awareness among the public about the importance of knowing and understanding sign language, as well as to encourage others to have sensitivity about deaf people in leadership and management, as well as in their daily life. So today, to help us, we've invited several guests from the Malaysian Federation of the Deaf to give an overview of Deaf Society, as well as to teach basic Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, or BIM. Okay, our first guest speaker for today is Encik Mohamad Sazali Sha'ari. He is the Executive Director for Malaysian Sign Language Development under the Malaysian Federation of the Deaf, or MFD. Some of Encik Sazali's achievements include being recognized as Disabled Person of the Year in 2002 by the Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development Malaysia, and being awarded the Anugerah Khas OKU 2015 Maulidur Rasul WP. Next slide. Can we proceed to the next slide? Sorry, 1 second. A bit of a technical difficulty. Okay. So, besides that, listed here are the positions Encik Sazali has held, and he is currently the advisor for the Malaysian Association of Sign Language Interpreter and the president of the Malaysian Confederation of the Disabled. Next slide. Okay, among his contributions include being recognized as a panel member of the UN Panel of Experts by the World Federation of the Deaf, becoming a board member for the Asia Pacific Deaf Sport Confederation, and being a member of the ASEAN Disability Forum. Okay, now, without further ado, I would like to invite Encik Sazali. Encik Sazali, how are you? Apa khabar Encik Sazali? Cik Goh, sorry, I think your mic is muted.
Ya, khabar baik, terima kasih.
Okay, thank you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you Encik Sazali for being here today untuk mengajar student-student UAE dan sesiapa yang sedang menonton sekarang tentang bahasa isyarat Malaysia dan juga tentang orang pekak di Malaysia juga. Dan thank you juga to Cik Goh for being here as Encik Sazali's interpreter. Cikgu, how are you? Apa khabar?
Yep. Thanks. I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So, without wasting time anymore, I would like to invite Encik Sazali. You can begin your speech on kemahiran asas bahasa isyarat Malaysia.
Right. Thank you very much to Cik Amir for the introduction. So first of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the organizer for giving me the chance and opportunity to to provide some explanation about the deaf community and to also explain about the Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. And I know this program is, well, as you mentioned, is trying to also advocate and to make awareness about deaf people to the public. And in fact, it is very important because if you're talking about with relation to management, which means that all of you or even other audience are actually leaders of the future in your respective field. So basically, all of you will meet up with people from across the community. And according to the policy of the development in the country, it stated that we shall not leave no one behind and to be inclusive as much as possible. So I would like to start off with explaining a little bit introduction about deaf community and what are the communication modes that we're using. Next slide, please. So the word deaf itself, if you actually go look at the definitions provided by the Kamus Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, it actually stated that unable to hear at all or partially able to hear. So that's basically talking about two different community. So if you actually look at other dictionaries, it will actually mean the same thing. Unable to hear fully or unable to hear partially. So if it means that either the person not able to hear anything at all or the person can hear a little bit. Okay, so I think can we move on to the next slide? Then I can explain a little bit further. Yeah. So for us, how we measure our hearing ability, we call it decibel or dB in short. So like all of you who are hearing, so basically your hearing ability is about 0 to 20 decibel or 20 dB as we call it. So if you talk softly, if you're whispering, the wind's blowing, birds chirping, you can actually hear all those sounds. And if you actually look at the graph, the one in red color, so basically it is for those who are from hearing ability of 20 to around 50 to 55 decibel, which means that they are able to hear partially on, or sometimes we call it, we don't hear it very good. Maybe if we want to talk softly, it's very difficult for us to identify. But if there are loud sounds or loud voice, we might be able to hear it, but we are not able to capture where the sounds come from. So we don't really hear properly. So the other category, when they say not able to hear at all, basically those who are from 50, 60 decibel and beyond. So basically, this person would not able to hear even a dog barking next to it. We won't able to feel it. So if there's a baby crying beside us, we won't able to hear it. So which means that this person not able to hear at all. And the worst part is, if we are actually standing in the field, we weren't able to hear helicopters, the jets flying above us, or even gunshot. Next slide, please. So our hearing ability Okay, my apology. I think it's the internet connection. So this world health perspective is basically very different from social perspective, because social perspectives, like for us, we actually only focus on two different groups instead of four, like you seen just now from the WHO. So for us, we have only two. Those like when we look at it, this is identifying us, as the group or the community itself. So if you actually see, according to the dictionary, so those who are actually unable to hear partially are those who are 15 to 55 decibel. We call them hard of hearing or kurang pendengaran. So this group basically unable to hear partially. And so those who are actually not able to hear at all, we call it pekak, 55 decibel and above, and we call it deaf. Next slide, please. So basically, when it comes to like medical perspective, they always wanted to enable us to hear sounds. Okay, so they will actually create a lot of items or tools or equipments for us to hear. So it's the same thing like if we are looking at things, we're unable to see clearly, we have to use glasses. So it's the same thing. If you're not able to hear properly or unable to hear partially, you have to use a hearing aids. So these are the hearing aids that is made available right now for the hard of hearing community, but it's only enabled to hear sound, especially for those who are hard of hearing, but they were not able to capture what the sounds come from or what sounds were they listening to. So it depends very much on the hearing ability. So let's say you're in a room full of people talking and chatting around, and there are phone ringings and everything is going on. You will not able to really concentrate and focus on what you have to do because this is too many sounds. And the next one is the implant cochlea or cochlear implants. Yeah, this, yes, it's a very advanced technology. They actually grill behind our ear and implant it. Okay, with a very small device and actually connected it to our hearing aids. So hearing aids and also implant cochlear is like the most used tools that for those who are hard of hearing and to enable to hear sounds. But let's say we have to go to sleep, we have to enter sports activities, or we have to go to take our bath or even swimming, we have to take it off. So once we take it off, it's back to square one. We are still unable to hear. But just to inform you, this item is very, very expensive. For a very digitalized hearing aids, is about 5K for one side. But if you want to have the options of cochlear implants, it's about 80,000. So 80,000, I might as well buy a new car. Next slide, please. So how do you identify a deaf person? Because a deaf person actually, we call it the invisible disabilities. You weren't able to see the disability until you realize who they are. So let's say you walk around and you saw a person with a white cane. Obviously, you know that person is blind. You see a person on a wheelchair, then we know the person is physical disability. But how about a deaf person? How do you identify them? Because if you're actually able to see me, I will be able to walk and run like just all of you. But how do you identify my disability? Okay, sorry, my apology. I think the internet connection is very unstable at my side. So normally it's like if you look at the deaf person, you are able to feel it. So let's say there's a deaf person in the university, and there are so many people walking around. How do you know who they are? How do you know if they are deaf or not? So it's very easy. So let's say one day you were walking around and you do not know the person, and the person was sitting, and then he stand up and he walked away. But while he was walking away, he maybe dropped his phone, his wallet, or even his key. But he is not responding. Then he had to pick it up. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe like we take out the things and we like, take. But the person might not be responding to you. So what you do is like, normally you just go out and catch up with the person and say like, take kunci. It's like, huh? It's like, oh, okay, sorry. It's normally how you want to call a deaf person, you have to tap them on their shoulder. Okay. So you tap them on the shoulder, the person will look at you and you're like, oh, okay. So you're like, cik, tertinggal barang ni, dia jatuh barang ni. You know, something like that. And like the person was like, okay. It's like, okay. Normally what they do is like they will identify themselves first. So how they actually do it? They actually use the pointer finger. what you do is that use the pointer finger from the ear down to the side of the mouth. Okay, now this is the sign for deaf or peka. So he or she must say, "Oh, I'm deaf, saya peka." But if a person who do not understand sign language might think like, "What? I might have something on my face." No, it actually means the sign for peka or deaf. So this is how a deaf person identify themselves. So sometimes, for us the deaf, I mean, for all of you, we will say tell a person like, oh, I'm hearing. You will not do that, right? But for a deaf person, we have to because we need to communicate. We need people to understand us. So let's say if you are going to let's say to a counter, and you want to do something, and you are deaf, and like, oh, how am I supposed to tell them? So normally at the first thing they'll tell, okay, I am deaf and I need assistance. Okay, next slide, please. So tap them on the shoulder if you need to communicate with them. They will probably will look at you and identify themselves. Or sometimes like, cannot hear, cannot talk. But even if that's so, if you knew because God us give us feelings and like just like all of you, we too have feelings. So try to communicate with us, even though you do not understand sign language. It's okay. Because if you just leave us behind like that, we might think like, what, did I did something wrong? What's wrong with me that you do not want to communicate with me? So it's always good if you want to set some sort of communication with us. Try to communicate with us. If you do not know how to sign, it's okay. You can write in on a piece of paper. If you don't have a paper, it's okay. No, you can use a phone. Because if you can actually establish a communication, we will feel very good. We will feel that, oh, okay, these people are accepting me of who I am, and they want to communicate with me. So, like I say, if you don't have pen and paper, you can use your phone. It's very easy. So there is no barrier of communication with you, and also with the deaf community. So try to establish a very basic information. Don't worry about that. So let's say you don't even have a phone with you. It's okay. You can still write it on the palm or at the arms. No, we can still able to communicate. So communications are there. The options are there. The alternatives are there. So you can just choose whichever mode you think is possible for you to communicate with the deaf person. So don't worry if you're not able to communicate. Because if you do not understand the needs of a deaf person, it will make it very hard for you. And you will actually creating a barrier of communication situation with the deaf person. But for us, there are alternatives. So don't worry. So basically, it's all of you know you should be responsible and try to communicate with the deaf person, and please do not just leave them like that. Next slide, please. So sometimes a deaf person will need a sign language interpreter to communicate. Because if, like today, if me without my interpreters, would you able to understand me? If let's say I do not have my interpreters, I am not able to use a voice to make my presentation, would you able to understand me? So basically, a sign language interpreter is a profession, and for a person to do this, he or she should be able to communicate from sign language to spoken language and vice versa. So it is indeed very important. So basically, if you're using a sign language interpreter, the sign language interpreter should be in front of a deaf person, not beside. because we have to look at each other's face. We have to look at each other's signing for us to communicate. So let's say you want to ask me, Encik Zali dah makan, instead of asking, telling my interpreter, tolong tanya Encik Zali dah makan ke belum? No, don't do that. Just ask directly. My interpreter will sign back to me. So I will know, okay, you're talking to me and not my interpreter. So if not, sometimes people are confused. Like, should I ask Sazali straight or should I ask the interpreter first? No, you should communicate directly with me as a deaf person. And no, try not to instruct the interpreters to do things because they are not under the instruction to work, but they are basically under the situation of assisting communication between two parties. So you want to communicate with a deaf person, make sure that there is nothing in front of you, nothing that is closing your face, nothing that too dark for us to communicate. Because if you have things like pens, papers, books, in front of you, I will not able to see what you are talking about. And a deaf person will find it very hard to communicate in a dark place. Because if you're sitting in the dark and trying to communicate, we won't able to see your sign. So if you're basically in a dark place, try to switch on the light or move to another place which is brighter. Next slide, please. So there are terms that are being used for the community. For us, basically, we very much focus on the social perspective. Let's say the word peka or deaf. Okay, these are the terms that are being used to us. So I know some maybe find it's very harsh, kasar to say even the word peka. But no, because the word peka itself, as you seen earlier in the kamus DPP, it says tidak boleh mendengar langsung atau tidak boleh mendengar keseluruhannya. So it's like it's either partially or not able to hear. It did not mention anything about being rude. It did not mention anything about being harsh. So basically, it just mentioned that a person not able to hear at all or not able to hear partially. So we are okay with the word deaf or even peka. Because even at the international level, we have the World Federation of the Deaf and we also have the Deaf Olympic. So the word itself and the term itself is accepted. So don't worry that you have to use the word peka. It's not something that we're going to be mad about or angry about because it's the terms that to identify us. Next slide, please. It's just that we also have feelings. We also have sensitivity, just like all of you. But it's a bit sad because sometimes the media trying to politicize things or even the politician trying to politicize things by using terms that is related to us. So why is that so? Because like, for example, only the blind, dumb, and deaf think Pakatan and BN alike. Are they saying that being deaf, they are actually stubborn and not able to follow instruction or being just ignorant? So people always misconceptualize the terms by trying to connect it to something negative. It shall not be that way. Because God give us feeling, God give us a lot of things, and we shall be equal. So even in the Islamic teaching, we shall not put someone down by giving them negative connotation. Okay, next slide, please. In our country, we have the Federal Constitution, number 8. And no, we are equal in the eyes of law. And for a deaf person in the country, we are all registered with the Malaysia Social Welfare Department. So currently there are around 40,000 deaf people registered. And we shall be considered part of the citizen, and we shall be given equal services, equal opportunity, and equal rights. So we are basically part of you. We are basically part of the society. Now we have the rights to live. We have the rights to go to schools. rights for education, rights for access to information, right to be employed. Because if you see at the PowerPoint, we have Akta OKU of People with Disabilities Act 2008. So all these accessible places, informations, shall be given to us without discrimination. And of course, the most important is like access to education, which is very, very important because all of us shall go to school to be able to be educated and able to be teach, to be part of the society. Because if we can get good results, obviously we can get good jobs. If you do not have good result, you might as well working somewhere that is you don't earn much. Because if we are given an equal access to education, we get good jobs, we actually basically part of the taxpayer of the country. So do not leave us behind and do not just ignore us. If we get good jobs, obviously we can, we were able to get married, to have a family of our own, and we can actually buy our own car or motorcycle because we need to go to work, we need to send our wife, our kids. We need to do all that. We have to go to traveling, things like that. Because if we want to go to work, we still have to take on transport. It doesn't matter if it's public transport, or even private transport. And even if we use that, we have to pay toll, we have to pay parking, we have to pay petrol. So basically, all of these are related to our country's development. So basically, we are part of society that is enabling our country to move forward economically. So this right shall be all given to us as equal as possible. Okay, next slide, please. As I mentioned just now, that we are all registered under the Malaysian Social Welfare Department, and also under the Act also stated the same thing. If you look at this, is the card OKU they're given to all of us. So let's say if you may have a deaf person, okay, or even other person with disabilities, you can just ask for their card OKU just to verify their status. And this card is actually have given a lot of benefits to us. Medically, we can get free medical services from public hospitals or public clinics, and we can get some discounts in some of the things that we can get, even services or even government assistance also via this card OKU. So if you have any family members who are actually OKU, please encourage them to register because they will get a lot of benefits from the government. Just make sure that they go to the nearest social welfare department, if at district level or state level, to get them registered. So they will get a lot of different benefits according to their needs. And of course, once you register, you will be given around 3 months or so to wait for the card OKU. Next slide, please. Okay, I just finished part 1 of the introduction of the deaf community. I would like to open the floor right now if you have any question. If you're unable to ask now, you can actually type in the chat room. Maybe the moderator can read the questions to me. So basically, I would like to talk about communication as well after this. So, Cik Ahmed, is there any questions?
Okay. To our viewers, does anyone have a question related to this topic for Encik Sazali? Actually, I myself have one question to ask. Oh, sorry.
Yes, yeah, tell me.
Okay. Just now, Encik Sazali mentioned that OKU people, they have a type of card that shows that they are OKU. And for someone that is not OKU,
Yeah.
could it be considered that it is rude or anything like that if we ask someone for their card? Should we just like maybe we should expect them to like feel like they have their own privacy as well? Is that considered rude or no?
Okay. Normally they will provide their card with you when it's needed, like if they go to like counter services, or they are attending events. Well, sometimes people would like to verify their status. They will ask for their card with you. But if not, normally they won't show it until it's asked. But if necessary, they will probably like show you the card with you. Um. So if the person do not have card, okay, maybe the person did not register. But no, we try to encourage them to register if they do not have one. Because sometimes no, they do not want to register because they find there's no need for it, or even the family members do not want to register them. But uh, if they find out, if they find that they don't have to, then it's okay. But we always encourage people to register.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Encik Sazali. I believe for now there's not any more questions. So you can continue with the speech, Encik Sazali. Oh, sorry, we have one question. Um, so from Akmal Danish, he asks people. He asks that how can normal people learn sign language? I assume he means people that are not deaf. Yeah.
Okay, it's a good question. So basically, my second part, I will talk about communication for the deaf. So I'll talk about a little bit more about sign language. Just that there's one term, you use normal people. Okay, these terms that in our community we don't use normal to identify us, because the opposite word for normal is abnormal. So are you saying we are all abnormal? Are you saying the people with disabilities are abnormal? No, because I'm just like you, a normal human being. So just try to not use the word normal, referring to all of you. For our context, we will call you hearing people. So opposite of hearing is deaf. So you say how a hearing person can learn sign language. So it will be easier that way. So that's the best term for you to use when you want to identify yourself. Okay. So this is normally how we actually encourage people to use the terms correctly. Because like me, I'm married, I have children. So am I abnormal? No, right? Okay, just a little bit explanation about the terms normal that being used. So if there's no question, I would like to continue with my second part a little bit more. So for us, that person, no, it doesn't matter. We human being, we need to communicate with one another. Okay, next slide, please. So basically, what is communication? So communication is a process of transferring information, feelings or thoughts, from one individual to another. Because without communication, basically we will be at loss. We do not know what to do. We might be left behind. So for a deaf person, for us to communicate, it is very, very important. Access to communication is very important. Next slide, please. So how a deaf person communicate? Basically, there are a few ways. There is a different modes of communication available in the society. So for all of you hearing people, you use spoken language. Doesn't matter Malay, English, Cantonese, Tamil, because you're listening to the spoken language and you utter the words accordingly. So basically, it's called verbal language. But for us, the deaf community, we are using non-verbal. Basically, what we use is Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia or Malaysian Sign Language. Or some of us do also use American Sign Language or different other sign language. And sign language do not have sounds or tones. So let's say you want to express feelings about sadness, then we can also use, in sign language to express our sadness. So basically, it's like if I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm scolding in sign language, then my interpreter will be able to also scold you in spoken language. Next slide, please. So, that people consider dumb, the word that you all use, dumb or bisu. Well, it's actually a wrong terms that are being used. Actually, a lot of deaf people do have a voice, but for a deaf person for the person who are born deaf, who never listened to the sounds before, obviously they were not able to utter the words. And normally, how we actually utter the sound in Bahasa Melayu, we goes according to suku kata. That's how we learn Bahasa Melayu. So, but we never heard the sound. Obviously, we're not able to utter the words like all of you. So if I never heard the sound before, obviously I will not able to utter the words. And even if I try, people might find it very weird because the way I say the things might not sound accurate. And like for me, I'm able to speak, but if I know people gonna laugh at me, I will try to avoid speaking. But with my family members or even close friends, they will actually understand me, so I might communicate with them using spoken language a little bit or using my voice. But I will not use it in front of other public because if I say it wrongly, people will laugh at us. There are deaf person who are able to use spoken language, but they have to undergo very thorough training and exercise for them to speak. But there are people who are born hearing, but they lost their hearing probably at the later age. So this group is still able to use spoken language. Okay, next slide, please. So that person, sorry, let me go through the definition first. So it's like the definition for language is basically, if you read from the PowerPoint, it's like system lambang bunyi or even sounds. It were being used as tools of communication for a group of people to express their feelings and thoughts. And the definition for signs is something that with your head movements, your hand movement, your body language, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. So in combination, Bahasa Isyarat or sign language is basically a complete natural language for the deaf because it had the same linguistic properties. It is the same way in spoken language according to Stokoe. So basically, even a person who is deaf using sign language, so it is still considered a proper language. Next slide, please. So the existence of sign language is not something new. It had been existed a long time ago. So basically, if a person is born deaf, so but basically sign language already existed. when the child is born. But when they were born, there's no record for it. So if let's say a baby is born and you want to communicate with the baby, obviously if you know the baby is deaf, you try to use sign, or body language or any movement or symbols. So when the child grew up, he or she might met up with another deaf person. They will communicate in their natural language, which is sign language. So according to Socrates, that he says that if we have no voice or no tongue and wish to make things clear to one another, should we not try as dumb, actually, do to make signs with our hand, head, person generally. So which means that we shall communicate trying to use our hands, our head, and body language. So it was stated long time ago. Next slide, please. This one, it's okay. Next slide, please. So to learn sign language, some people might have the misconception and thinking sign language is what? It's like a pantomime. It's like people doing jokes or comedy or something that is not even a language. And some of them thought that sign language are universal, but it is not. So let's say in Bahasa Melayu, you have the intonation, you have the high pitch, the low pitch. So let's say if a person is deaf, obviously her pitch or his pitch are very low, and being sad. But if the person is angry, the pitch is higher, and very loud. So we know there's different intonation for it and different expression. So it's the same thing when we do it in sign language. If we are sad, we show a sad face. If we're angry, we show an angry face, with eyes open wide. Movements are very fast. So basically, sign language has the same structure as spoken language. So basically, sign language has its own grammar. It's the same like in English or Malay. So let's say if I have something in Malay and I wish to write it down, so I have to write according to the correct grammar of Bahasa Melayu and not following English sign language. So we cannot do literal translation. So let's say Bahasa Melayu we have jalan makan angin. So shall we literally translate it in English as walk eat air? No, right? So that's the same thing. If you want to do it in sign language, we shall not literally translate it into other spoken language and vice versa. So basically, sign language has its own structure and is a linguistic perspective. From a linguistic perspective, it is acceptable language. And sign language is universal? No, it's not. For example, in Malaysia, we have different races, we have different religions, different backgrounds, different culture altogether. So let's say a Malay person is getting married. So this is how we sign marriage, bersanding for the Malays. So male and female sit together. And what about Chinese? But the Chinese do not have bersanding. So the sign for Chinese getting married is this. Why? Because in the Chinese marriage ceremony, it is very important part that, when they serve the elders. So the most important part is actually the tea ceremony part, where they have to bow to the elders and provide them with tea. So this is how we sign marriage for the Chinese community. And what about the Indians? The Indians do not bersanding. The Indians do not have tea ceremony. But the important part is when they wear the tali. So this is the Indian culture. So we have to be respectful and respect different culture that's available in our country. So another differences is when we come to prayers. For the Malays or for the Muslims, sorry, we pray like this, Salat. For the Chinese, could be this, Christian this, and those who are the Indian community might be that. So we have to respect each other culture, each other ways of life, and we sign accordingly. But for other words, it's general. But for specifically, no, we have to sign according to their needs and culture. Next slide, please. So if you look at this slides, yeah, is sign language universal? Well, we try to figure out here. Okay, this is the sign for female in Chinese sign language, while in India, the sign for female is this: the stud and the nose. This is their Indian culture, and it is very, very different. And the sign for male in Chinese sign language is this, because it's how they comb their hair neatly. Now it's as the identity of a male person in China. But in India, the sign for male is actually the thick mustache. So basically, it's different. Sign language for male and female in China and Japan. In China and India. But it's the same thing when it comes to like eating. In India, they eat with their hands, but not the Chinese people. The Chinese people eat with chopstick. So we have their culture and their way of life. And it actually differs from one country to another. So basically, in short, sign language is not universal. But if a deaf person from China may not be a deaf person from India, you might think that, oh, they were not able to communicate. But not really. We do have what we call international sign. So international sign basically have a lot of different combination of body language, how we sign it, our facial expression, to enable another deaf person able to understand us. So it's like all of you, if you're attending international conferences or seminar, normally the mode of language is English, right? So it's the same for the deaf community. Next slide, please. So there are tips or ways to communicate with a deaf person. Now we always encourage all of you to learn sign language. We always encourage the same thing to other people who wanted to communicate with a deaf person. Sign language is not that hard. For example, if I ask you, how do you sign the word makan or eat? Obviously, you will sign like this, right? So, Cik Amir, if I can see your video, if I may ask you something.
Yes, of course.
Cik Amir, I will ask you, how do you sign makan? As a
I think
hearing person.
maybe something like that. Or like put something in my mouth.
Yeah, correct. What about minum or drink?
Like something like this.
Yes, correct. But I haven't teach you sign language, which means that sign language is already in all of you. Yeah, whether you realize it or not. And I would like to ask you, how do you go to university?
I go by riding the car.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you have to do the steering sign, or even if you take a bike, you do a motorcycle bike. How do you sign bicycle?
Maybe like that. Something like this.
Also, you sign bicycle like this. Yeah, but normally how we sign bicycle is like this. How we actually cycle.
Yeah.
So basically, which means that all of you already have sign language in you. It's just that it might not be, it could be incorrect, or it might be not the standard one. So basically, you already have sign language in you, but it's just that we need to do it the right way. So learn sign language. So you want to communicate with a deaf person, yeah? Make sure that you're doing it face to face. You make sure they have eye contact because they need to see your facial expression. They wanted to know if you're angry, you are sad. Do not try to not to cover your face, especially now it's COVID time. I know, and it's understood that all of us have to wear a mask. If you don't wear one, obviously you'll be summoned and you have to pay a lot. And when I go out, sometimes I will stop by the police at the roadblock, and the police will always speak to me, but I don't know what the police is talking about because they were covering their face. So what am I supposed to do? So normally what I do is like I will show them my card OKU and tell them that I'm deaf. So normally police like jalan je lah. But maybe the police can think of something else, but I don't know. And try not to whisper to us, or try not to talk so slow to us, or try to shout at us. No, just talk at a normal pace that we do. So that is how we communicate. So don't try to think negative that, oh, you're unable to communicate, you don't know sign language. No, that is okay. Next slide, please. So after this, I will have checked Nosada to teach you some basic sign language. So Cik Nosada is a deaf tutor. She has been teaching for many, many years now. She's one of our teachers in teaching sign language for university students, for government servants, for the public. So she had the experience to teach all of you. So while learning sign language, make sure that if you have the video or you're learning through video, make sure that your body space shall be correct, so that you can see your hand movement, you can see your body language. And try not to talk when you're using sign language or when you're learning sign language. Okay, just sign like what checks are going to teach you. So if you have question, please ask. Okay, if you keep quiet, we do not know whether you understand it or not. Obviously, having a face-to-face class is much better, so we can understand and we can correct your sign, we can interact. But of course, there are limitations when you're using online classes or online platform. But nevertheless, she will teach you some basic sign for you to learn how to communicate with that person. So if the teacher is like asking questions, or try to respond. Don't worry if it's wrong sign, you sign wrongly or incorrect. It's a part of learning process. We all learn from mistakes. That's how we learn. Okay. So I think I will stop here and let Cik Nosada to teach you for the remaining hour. So before I pass it on to her, I'm not sure if there is any other language that you wanted to ask me. So just now, the person, Danish, right, that asked if a person can learn sign language. Say yes. We do provide sign language classes. but because of the COVID time, we are unable to provide a physical class. But we do have online classes if you want. You can actually go to Open Learning platform. You can search for Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia, or maybe the university can conduct a sign language online together with us. So there are ways for us to to propose a online class with all of you. Just that we have to make sure that the time is right. Make a proper schedule for all of us. But of course, obviously there will be fees, charges. If you want the online classes, where you learn with a tutor, it's like once a week. Each class is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the number of students. So yeah, there are options where you can learn sign language. Of course, the best one is always physical classes. We can interact with one another. We can talk to one another. We can ask questions instead of online, where there are a lot of limitations. So if you're all interested, maybe all of you can contact Cik Amir after this. Maybe we can arrange something for URA Pago. And just for your information, we already conducted classes for URA Gombak. And we have been teaching their curriculum for the past few years now. So maybe URA Pago can take the initiative to start a class over their side. Okay? Cik Amir?
Okay. Thank you, Encik Sazali. Okay. I think we have a few questions from the audience. The first one is, dari mana anda belajar perkataan-perkataan untuk dipertuturkan dalam keadaan anda tidak pernah mendengarnya? I think this is in reference to the people that are born deaf.
Okay. So if let's say a person is born deaf and never heard of the sounds before, but they will obviously have to learn through sign language. So basically, for a deaf person, sign language is our first language or our native language, or we call it our mother tongue. So let's say you want to inform the child. Okay, this is susu. Susu is how we squeeze it. Susu. So if the baby is crying, we repeatedly do the same thing. You want susu, you want milk. So obviously the baby will look at the sign and try to move their hands. We teach them. And then we'll show them, okay, the milk bottle and other stuff we put in front of them. Which one you want? Susu. Okay, so okay, this is milk. Okay, the others is not. So this is how a baby learns. Let's say orange is the same thing. You assign orange, but you put the picture and the fruits orange in front of them. They were able to visualize. So this is a basic concept. They learn language through sign language. So when they enter school, they will obviously have to learn proper language in Bahasa Melayu. They have to learn, read and write accordingly. So let's say the sign for susu just now, yeah? So once they enter school, they will have to read it and learn it in spoken language and also written language. Susu, S-U-S-U. So the same thing is like if that is actually how we learn a language. But when it comes to spoken language, there are a lot of challenges. Because we never heard the words before. So let's say the word S-E-M-A-K, semak and semak. So obviously, we will have difficulties in like mentioning these two, whether it's semak or semak, because it have two different meanings. So it is very hard sometimes. Even though we can not utter the words, we are scared to use it because we're scared that if we use it in the wrong way. I hope you answered the question. And sorry, that is why I think one of the things that we actually encourage a lot of deaf people to actually read a lot so they can understand the meaning. If no, they are not able to utter the words, it's okay. But if from true reading, they will actually understand the meaning. Okay, Ahmed, got any other question?
Okay, thank you. The next question is okay. So there's one question. She asks, does that mean that non-hearing people has to learn ESL and Malay Sign Language as well, just like how hearing people can learn English and Malay? And also, are interpreters required to learn at least ESL and Malay Sign Language?
No. It's not. It doesn't work that way. So in Malaysia, basically we just focus on Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. But how you translate it, it depends on the interpreter. So like right now, because since you're using English, so my interpreters will actually translate into English so that the audience can understand. But if you say, okay, can we do it in Bahasa Melayu, then my interpreter will translate in Bahasa Melayu. So for, let's say for the word you, okay, we sign you like this. Well, I can say, oh, awak, kamu, anda. Atau, or we cannot say in Chinese word, ni, nei, saya, I, me. So it doesn't matter whether you use in English, but we use only one sign language in the country. It's just how you translate it to another language, that's it. Let's say eat, we sign eat. But I can use the sign eat for makan. It's the same thing. It's just that there's only one sign. No, we don't really have to learn American sign because it is not our language. Okay? But just now I think I saw a question like asking like how long to learn sign language. Then that actually depends very much on your interest. If you're really interested to learn language, obviously it's very fast. If you does not have the interest, it will become a barrier for all of you to actually remember how the sounds like. But the most important one is like to communicate with that person directly, to interact with them, mingle with them. It's the same thing like if you learn French. I can learn French, but if I do not have anyone to talk to me, then it will goes away. We will lose the experience. We will lose the knowledge of learning French. The most important one is to have someone to communicate with you. Okay. Any other questions, Cik Amir?
Oh, I think that's all the questions for now. Thank you, Encik Sazali, for the speech just now. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So now, for the next segment of our program, before we begin, we would like to introduce several people that will be participating on screen to help out the instructor, Cik Nur Sada, with the learning section for Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. So I think we can have those people on screen right now. And for those of you at home, you can also try and follow along with how Cik Nur Sada is going to teach us later on. Okay. So I'll begin the introductions by introducing myself. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Amr Itlan, and I am an NCOM student at UIA.
Alright, Assalamualaikum and good morning to our honorable guests, Encik Sazali, Cikgu and Cik Sada. My name is Nadia and I am an NCOM student at UIA. and I'm also the program manager for this event. So I want to take this opportunity to thank Encik Sazali, Cikgu and Cik Sada for being with us together today. And also to all participants, thank you for joining us. And I'm pretty sure that we all can look forward to learn a lot of new things about sign language together. So do participate. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Nurul Huda Farhana from program ARCOM dan saya salah satu partisipan untuk kelas bahasa isyarat ni lah. Okay, semoga kita boleh belajar bersama.
Okay, my name is Alia Zwani. I am currently studying ENCOM, English for International Communication, and I hope that I can learn something from this language. And I hope that I can learn something from this.
Assalamualaikum, saya Siti Nur Farhanani. Saya daripada jurusan Makom. Saya
Okay. Is that all the participants? Okay, great. So without further ado, I would like to invite Kin Sada, the instructor for today's learning session, to help us learn more about Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. Dipersilakan, Cik Sada.
Okay, Cikgu Sada will start teaching. So I will just ask Miss Ko to leave for a while so that we don't use the words of interpreter for the class. Okay.
Okay.
A, A, B, C. Okay.
Type kot. Nak minta kita orang type. D.
D. To A, to D, A,
D. A. D. A. Dada. Tadi. Dada. G H I. Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, this is K.
Cikgu Sada ada masalah connection sekejap. Helicopter. Okay. Terima kasih Cikgu Saadah. Terima kasih kepada Cikgu Saadah untuk kelas Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia tadi. Dan terima kasih untuk semua participants tadi juga yang telah take part in the lessons as well. Okay, and thank you to everyone at home as well for following today's class. And once again, I would like to thank Encik Sazali for being here today to teach us more about deaf people and Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia. And thank you to Encik Goh for being the interpreter for Encik Sazali. And thank you to Cikgu Saadah for being the teacher for our Bahasa Isyarat Malaysia today. So I believe that is all for today's program. I would like to thank everyone so much for participating and learning a lot about Bahasa Isyarat and deaf people. And hopefully in the future we can be more understanding and we can communicate with deaf people using sign language. And hopefully this has fostered an interest in learning sign language as well to everyone that is watching today. And that is all from me. And make sure to for those of you who are watching, make sure to register in the registration form, and also to put your name, to fill in the evaluation form. And with all of that, I would like to thank everyone once again. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much. Okay.